you said something really cool that was like, hey, there's a lot of this and it's going to be a lot of this uphill. So we don't need to do it all in one chunk, more or less. So let's keep it, let it come to us, take it as easy as we can on that first section, get into that first swim, and then kind of crank it up if we need to from there, or just see how we're feeling. So that was awesome. It was a tough first run, but it was a good way to get the day going and warm up from the ferry over and get into that race mode. But yeah, it was awesome. I thought we did exactly what we wanted to plan.
Welcome to the Low Tide Boyz, a swimrun podcast. I'm Chip.
I'm Chris, and this is episode 278 of the show. If you recognize the rock flute, that can only mean one thing, and that is we have our first race report for I guess technically our second race report for 2025, but our first swimrun race report. We just got back from Ötillö, Catalina Island, which was an amazing weekend. And joining us to talk about this race was Chipper's teammate for the race, Will Ramsey. Welcome to the show.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks so much. Excited to be here. Talk about a fun weekend and fun day out on the course.
Yeah, for sure. So we've known you for a long time, and if people weren't paying attention or don't know what's going on, they're like, hey, how come Chris isn't racing with Chipper? So I'm injured. I have some weird spinal injury that I'm trying to get sorted out, so I wasn't able to race. And Chipper started trolling. We're like, we got to get you a partner, dude. I held out as long as I could. We did a shakeout swim run, and I was like, it's not happening for me. So I was like, Chipper, man, troll the start list. And we're going through the solo racers, and he said that he saw Will. I was like, dude, that's perfect. So before we get into your race and sort of the weekend at Catalina, Will, why don't you tell us a little bit about your sort of endurance background? You're obviously super stoked on swim run. Kind of where did that sort of stokedness germinate?
Yeah, for sure. So grew up playing soccer my whole life, moved to Charleston, South Carolina in 2010, and played just like 6v6, 11v11. And then kind of got tired of doing that and found there's a local triathlon going on. And so I got on a bar to road bike, never really swam open water since probably like middle school. Jumped in and fell in love with it. It was a sprint tri. It was awesome. So got into the kind of 70.3 circuit for a couple years. And then in 2018, we had our first child. And being on a bike, I was always decent on the swim, decent on the run, and terrible on the bike. So I had to spend a lot of time biking. Not great for family life being, bike for 6 hours every Saturday. Kind of put some strain with the newborn. So I think somebody told me about Swimrun and just started to check it out. And I was like, this looks awesome. It combines the two things that I love and am better at. So I think I did my first one in maybe 2019 and then just dropped Ironman stuff altogether. I just fell in love with the sport. It's ultra running mixed with open water swimming, and the community that you get to be a part of is unreal. Been doing them pretty consistently since 2021, obviously the COVID break, but I did all the Odyssey events when they were doing those, Swimrun North Carolina, Lake James, and then Catalina was a blast.
Yeah, so you 10, 12, somewhere a dozen, something swim runs, not your first rodeo, but I think was appealing. And, we've chatted over events and kind of similar, following each other on Strava. And I'm like, oh, kind of similar coaching that we had as well for a time period there. And it's like, hey, I did that workout. Will just did that workout pretty much around the same pace. And it just kind of seemed like a really good fit. And I was like, I don't know how diabolical Will's trying to be going solo on the Catalina course. I need to help him out here.
It was a welcomed Instagram message for sure. I've typically been kind of switching partners, trying to find somebody that is consistent. It's been awesome. I've got to know a lot of different people, and then I've done a fair amount solo. So the guy I was going to do this with couldn't come, and so asked a couple other people, and they all had their different reasons for saying no. So I was like, whatever, I'll do it solo. And now after doing the race, Chris, I'm so sorry you're injured, and you'll get back soon. But I'm very appreciative of Chipper's company out there. That's a beast of a race to do by yourself. So excited.
No, absolutely. Like, I wanted to do this with Chipper. I think, many ways, doing the show for 5 years. We did Catalina was really the thing that was sort of the impetus to start the podcast. And highly motivated to get back from my injury for this race. I ended up having a setback, unfortunately. But I really wanted to do it. So I was really bummed I couldn't do it. But I also really wanted Chipper to do it because he's been working really hard. He's came back from his own injury, was doing a ton of work, super proud of him. So I wanted him to kind of like represent for where he's at, and we had a conversation where I was kind of, I've had my moments of being mopey and sort of bummed out about it. And really, really bummed that I couldn't go out there and kind of see what we could do, knowing that we could do so much better. And Chipper, it was you who was like, "Hey, man, we don't need to do the race to actually do the race to know that we're such better swim runners now." And that was like obviously true, right? Like we're just like almost like different human beings. It feels like, and certainly, Chipper, tons of swim run experience, but this is really your first time racing with someone else. So before we get into like getting the Catalina and all that stuff. I'm curious, and I'm glad that I'm hosting this show. It's my show. This is my show this week.
I'm not co-hosting. I'm guesting.
You're guesting. Chipper, as we've talked about, all the times that we talk about swim run, like how actually I thought it was really helpful for me to race with someone else. What was your experience racing with Will, and kind of like, have you already kind of processed some of like the level upping similar to what I felt when I raced with Viv at Austin last year?
Yeah, I think what really kind of came through, it's like we spend a lot of time sharing and giving advice on what to do to have a good swim run partnership and a good swim run race. And it's like, I'm sure some people are like, well, they've been training partners for over a decade, so of course they get along, they get on fine. So now it's like the proof is kind of in the pudding. Do I do as I say, sort of thing? But yeah, I think really what kind of came through to me, and we talked about this even during the race, is really like the fundamentals of it. Communicate, like over communicate, don't be sloppy on the transitions, keep it tidy, and you'll have a pretty good day. But I really, around the communication during the race, obviously it was a huge component, but kind of before, I think Will and I, we hit it off. It was like pretty laid back. It's like, oh, we'll kind of figure it out when we get out there, but like, hey, we just kind of want to have fun. We kind of aligned on what goals. We already sort of, peeped each other's Strava situation. So we knew it wasn't going to be like a wildly mismatched like paces or anything. And it's like, hey, you lead one swim and then we'll switch the next one. We kind of thought we would just go with the flow, being, pretty experienced, probably 25, 30 swim runs between the two of us, like a good amount of swim run experience to kind of just go with the experience and go with the flow, but really indexing pretty heavily on the communication.
And how about you, Will, from sort of like your side of the garage? You've raced with multiple partners. Like, what did you bring to the table, or how are you approaching basically racing with someone who you've obviously, we've known each other for a long time. We see each other at races and, always got along, obviously. But, when you're tethered to someone, which of course I gave permission for that to happen, you know how that goes, but, or at least I acquiesced to it. You and Chipper chatted a little bit before, but kind of what was your headspace going into racing with a new partner, essentially?
Yeah, for sure. I think the biggest like learning experience that I had was just, so previously we didn't tether, we didn't tether a lot with other partners. I didn't tether a lot, and I've done a ton solo. So the tethering piece of it was really leaning on Chip to like walk me through that of like, hey, how is this going to go? Because I'm not familiar of being in the back on a tether in general. Every other time I've tethered, I've led, and just what does that feel like? So really going into it, that was my big, like, the only apprehension I had was like, how am I going to, because, you're racing with somebody, you don't want them to have a bad day because you're not familiar with doing something. So really talking through that before the race, of being open and honest. I mean, like, hey, the one thing I haven't really had a lot of experience with is tethering. So he was awesome talking me through it. Like, hey, this is how it's going to go. This is how I'll feel in the back. Talked to Marcus on the ferry ride over. He gave some great tips, but Chipper nailed it. I mean, communication is key. You kind of all speak the same language, and you get out there and you're really able to say, hey, I'm not feeling great here. I'm feeling great here. Like, that was an awesome swim. This is what we did well. This is what we can do better. It's like always checking in with your partner. I think that goes a long way, just from a comfort level of, even if you've never raced with somebody before, if they've got some experience in endurance racing under their belt, they'll know what you're saying and what you're trying to ask. I think that's the key for a good day, is communication.
Yeah. How nice is it to be in the back?
Oh my gosh, it's a game changer.
I like it too. It was great. Because we were every other swim, we kind of trade off there. which I know is something a little bit, Chris, that we don't normally do, but it is something we have kind of talked about, like adjusting our strategy. And I think definitely racing with Will, like really confirmed that that's a really good strategy, because I would get a chance to kind of like, take the dial back a little bit, recover. I had to take a huge pee at one point, so I got to get the pee out in the back of the swim. So, it was all good back there. Saw a seal, so taking a little bit more of the sights.
You got some sightseeing. It was great. I loved it. It was like, this is awesome. I called the guy I'm doing Casco Bay with. I called him afterwards. I was like, hey, we're tethering. Like, tethering's a game changer. It's like,
that's
the way to go.
And I think just like, for folks at home are like, why tether? There's a couple very good reasons to tether. So we can just do a little PSA on tethering.
Do it.
One, it helps you be in contact with your partner swimming. So you can swim faster because you're staying safety, obviously. But even on the run, there's some advantages to staying tethered, whereas the haptic feedback, kind of knowing where people are at, if you literally got to pull someone up a hill kind of thing, it can all be helpful, and it can really unlock like a next level of performance. So if people are on the fence about tethering, highly recommend people trying it and practicing.
Somebody that didn't, definitely tether, 100%. I'm a
sweet.
Very big believer after Catalina. That's you
excellent. So before we get into the race report, because I think this race certainly we should give some time to the course itself, because it was so diabolical in many ways. Let's talk about sort of the experience of the weekend. So Chipper and I and the California Swimrunner people, we sort of made our way and stayed in two harbors. But Will, you kind of did, which was actually a pretty interesting option. Back in 2020, everyone kind of made their way to Avalon, and that was sort of the home base of operations. For this year, Ötillö USA, I think with a reasonable amount of foresight and well planning, made it an option so you could stay on the mainland and kind of make your way over in the morning, even though it was diabolically early, save costs on Avalon pricing and things like that. So Will, how did that whole thing go? Like, give us a little bit of the flavor of that ferry experience in the morning.
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, just having the option is so nice for travel purposes, to be able to get there on Saturday, not have to get over to Avalon and stay in Long Beach and get up early on Sunday morning. So coming from the East Coast, it worked really well because I just stayed on East Coast time. So getting up at 3 felt like 6, so felt pretty normal. Got up at 3, got on the ferry at 4. We loaded pretty quick, got out of there. It was a long trip with the stop in Avalon and then over to Two Harbors, but it was money. Like, good company, everyone was relaxed, everyone was ready to go. It was definitely great that they provided that option, because I think it opened the doors to a lot of people that may not have raced because they were able to do that. So it was awesome. I put on all my stuff leaving the hotel, and I was like, I'll be in this all day anyway. It got kind of chilly on the ferry ride over, which gave me a little nerves going into that first run when Chipper was like, hey, cab down. It's like, I don't know, I'm cold. But no, ferry was awesome. It was great. Pretty relaxed and easy to get over there.
Awesome. It did throw a little wrench into, I mean, we were, once we had sort of a line that we would partner up, we were, started texting, kind of, working on communicating already right there. But really, we only had 30 minutes from when the ferry landed to the race start to like, hey, let me see you. Let's chat through some stuff in person. Let's kind of, we did a little, like a 10-minute kind of like warm-up shakeout jog before, but that's the only thing about the ferry. It's like, oh yeah, it would have been great if we could have had the day before and done like a little 30-minute swim run and kind of really dialed things in. But I didn't really have that much of those concerns with how experienced Will is in the swim run circuit.
Yeah, well, I was playing Mr. Congeniality, basically greeting people coming off the ferry. And I saw Will, and I gave him a big hug, and I was like, hey, man, Chipper's up the hill. Go find him. You only have like 30 minutes before the race.
I got your bib. I got your stuff.
It's like, he's over there. I think Ötillö did an awesome job, and we'll be shouting out Ötillö throughout this, because I think it's a super challenging place to put on a race. A lot of permitting. Got to know someone's uncle and their cousin in order to be able to get access to different areas. So logistically, it's really difficult to put this race on. Shout out to Andy Hewitt and Sean Durkin, who we got to hang out with a lot this weekend, who were basically the original designers of that course before a European Ötillö decided to put on the race in 2020. It was really Andy and Sean who were like trying to convince them for this to happen. So, shout out to the Godfather there. But this course, typical Ötillö style, there were 3 distances. We've talked about the experience, sprint, and World Series. They were all difficult in their own way. The sprint was no joke. The World Series was definitely no joke. So why don't we do kind of like a leg breakdown as much as you're willing, assuming the PTSD hasn't settled in too hard. It's only been a few days. But let's just give people a sense of what this race was, insofar as you can remember parts of it and you weren't just like, blacked out and stuff. So the race started, I think it started like at 8:10 or something because the ferry was a little bit late. So the races were supposed to start at 8. They started a little bit later. It was already pretty warm out. It was cloudy at first, but everyone I saw that had like arm warmers on and their swim caps on, I was telling them, like, hey, buddy, run one. You don't want to have that on. I was basically telling everyone to cab down. I don't know what they were thinking. It's like, what do you want to see my kangaroo top? But it seemed like solid advice that I was willing to dispense freely. So why don't you walk us through? The gun goes off right after national anthem. Apparently there was around 200, 220 athletes racing across all categories.
Nice.
So yeah, why don't you give us a little race report?
Yeah, I mean, I think Will and I kind of aligned, just like we do, Chris, like, try to keep it in your pants to start out. There is literally no sense in shooting out and like spiking the heart rate right away. Luckily, we had hiked the run one a couple of days before as a group. So that was like really valuable intelligence that I was like relaying. Will and I were like texting on when we were on the hike. I'm like, ooh, this is a really steep one. Here's a video of it. And I was like sending all this intel. But I think we started like really to plan. And we're going to kind of let the race come to us a little bit and really kind of ease into it, knowing that there's that 10K run, which is going to be the big formidable piece. So it was really the first, until we get to that, let's just kind of ease into it and have it come to us a little bit. And Will, I don't know how you felt, but I felt like we nailed that pretty well.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the cabbing down advice was huge. I was very thankful that took that message to heart. And how it was like, started out kind of exactly that. Let it come back to us. And you said something really cool that was like, hey, there's a lot of this and it's going to be a lot of this uphill. So we don't need to do it all in one chunk, more or less. So let's keep it, let it come to us, take it easy as easy as we can on that first section, get into that first swim, and then kind of crank it up if we need to from there, or just see how we're feeling. So that was awesome. It was a tough first run, but it was a good way to get the day going and warm up from the ferry over and get into that race mode. But yeah, it was awesome. I thought we did exactly what we wanted to plan.
So, Will, let me ask you, Charleston, South Carolina isn't known for its steep mountain climbs.
He told me on the race multiple times.
In Marin, we just have to go out our door. We can just destroy ourselves, flog ourselves anytime we want on this stuff. In your training, so zooming out a little bit, do you feel like you did everything you could do in your training to try to even mimic these conditions?
I mean, it's impossible to mimic them in anywhere that's flat. We've got a bridge that's like 200 feet up, but it's like 3/4 of a mile. So it's a 6.5 minute run and that's it. So you just don't get those long uphills. I did a 50K like March 22nd up in Virginia. That was about 7,000 feet of climbing, which really helped kind of get those legs back in familiarity with, that type of elevation gain and the downhills too. And then North Carolina helped a couple weeks before as well, but it's tough. I mean, I'll be honest with you, like the hardest thing is to jump on those and jump back into it. I was talking to Herbert. It's like, hey man, how do you train for this? And he was like, uphill treadmill. Like that's all, just learning how to walk really fast uphill and getting that strength. And then the downs is something that like is also, you need to train for it because that can blow you up pretty quick. But it's hard. I mean, I'll try to get in the mountains a couple times a year, but do a lot of bridge repeats. And that's, hill repeats on the bridge is what I go to. But yeah, I'm super jealous of y'all's setup. I'll say that.
Well, that's the answer we're hoping you'd say, that you're jealous of us. Yeah, Chipper, we also did like a pretty big 50K about a month before the race. And we already kind of chatted about this when I got my own private race report. But how did you feel that helped you sort of even just get your mind around all the climbing that was going to be involved?
Yeah, I mean, it's, even though we trained up a lot of hills, the hills in Catalina are more aggressive on the steepness and the grade on the downhills as well. But, I think I really came to this year knowing that this was one of the key races for me of like, be purposeful with the work and like get out on the trails and hit the hills as much as I can. And it was every weekend trying to get that 2K mark, 10 miles, 12, 13 miles to 2K out on the trails, up. And, like we did many spent many minutes during the race, like hiking with purpose of like, really just trying to, yes, you are hiking, but like keep moving and keep moving forward at a good pace. Just sort of having a lot of intention with a lot of the hill work that we did. And the big ultra race that we did, the 50K, actually probably that sounds like the same weekend, Will, that you did yours, similar stats with the elevation gain as well. Like that was such that's a perfect little build race, 50K, the right kind of time out, the right sort of distance and elevation. Like I'm really, really glad that I went with that, kind of trail running, ultra marathon, heavier load in the beginning of the season. I think that really served me well for Catalina.
For sure, for sure. So let's zoom back in now. So you guys finished run one. So it starts with a pretty big uphill, then actually pretty screaming downhill, kind of like winding down to the first swim. How happy were you to get to that first swim?
Yeah, I mean, we were capped down, so we were hiking up. We hadn't even hit the mile marker. I was like just profusely just dripping sweat.
You guys, I'm leaking.
I'm leaking. I'm going to be cooked. I was going to be cooked. And we actually, because we had done it, so we kind of had the intel how much time we have left. So I was like, hold off on cabbing up. Like, let's wait. And again, it was like, hey, I'm going to cab up. Hey, Will, hold my, gave him my bib and my thing. And he kind of held it. And then we swapped and I held his stuff. So we were able to kind of get up. And again, I think we were over communicating those first couple transitions. Like, hey, you take this one. It'll be right around here. Let's tether. We kind of had the tether going on. And we were, hey, do you want me to just, did I lead the first swim? I think I did.
You led the first swim because
I already forgot.
When we talked, you're like, all right, let's get in there. I was like, you go in the front. Let me get this in the back piece out first so I know what it's going to feel like. And you knew that first swim being around that corner, I think you at least had seen it, scouted it, probably did more prep than I did on what it actually looked like. So I was glad that you led the first one. It got my anxiety down about tethering pretty quickly, and we jumped right in and rolled with it.
Yeah,
And how was it? Was it a crisp transition? Did you guys like make it look sexy?
I mean, of course, we put a little mini clinic on for everyone, but we work. I was like, hey, you want me to like? We were talking like, do you want me to just barrel into it and just like rip it in on the transition, or you want to kind of take it easy on the first one? He's like, oh, we'll like ease into it. I'm like, okay, no problem. We weren't like, we weren't lollygagging or anything, but it was like, hey, you ready? Yeah. I'm like, 1, 2, 3, go. And boom, we just went in. And, I think especially for
how'd the water feel?
So
nice. Felt real nice for that.
Real nice.
It was after sweating for that first run, and it was such a welcomed feeling. It was great. I give Chipper an A on the transition. I give myself like a C minus,
wow.
C plus.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were ready.
You were team. How could you have such a disparaging grade from mine?
Because I was the one that was like, no, give me a second. Let me figure all this stuff out. So that was good. The water felt great. It was a welcome feeling for sure.
So very communicative coming in on like speed of transition and pace, as well as I think one thing that really served us very well the whole race was we're very like, look at where we're going and like what line are we going to take on the swim. And, if I gave our open water swimming grade for the day, I'm going to put that pretty high marks. I think I'll go B+ on that one. So I think that kind of really set a nice pace. There were teams going out very wide on that first swim, and I just kind of cut it pretty close. Will was right there. I mean, it was very like familiar situation for me in front. It was, it wasn't like the tether was being pulled back or anything. It was very, very familiar. So very easy swim. Yeah, it's like the water I think was just the right temperature. Didn't have too much texture on it. It was a great swim.
So Will, I have a question for you. So I know you did Swimrun NC a few weeks ago, but I know Chipper and I, whenever we do races, especially the first race of the year, it's kind of like your confidence is like, do I remember how to do this? But it's really once you do your first transition into your swim, you're like, oh yeah, this is I've done this tons of times. This is great. Did you feel that as well? It's like, do I really know what's going on here?
Yeah, for sure. Because NC, awesome course. The swimming's pretty straightforward in that race, though, right? Like you know exactly where you're going the whole time. The swimming here was awesome, but it was also challenging from a you had to be on it. Like you had to know what you're sighting off of, where you're going. And it made for a different type of confidence booster, but also, yes, going into it, like, do I really remember how to open water swim well and take good lines and not go way out of bounds, not go way side? Like it's different with the currents than in a lake and knowing exactly where you're going to go. So yeah, it was good to get that first one under the belt and be like, because that one wasn't straightforward. You went around a cove, you didn't really see the flag the whole time. So it was good to get that more challenging one out of the way first, for sure.
Gotcha. And then, what I guess is pretty much the theme of the day, you get out of that first swim, got to go up.
Yeah.
More hills. So I'm curious, did you guys, what was your kind of cab down plan? I know starting cab down made a lot of sense, but you guys, were you cabbing up and down a lot? That second run, I think it was a couple miles before you get back into the water that kind of takes you closer to the main Two Harbors swim or Two Harbors exit. Like well, first of all, how did that second run go? And yeah, what were you thinking in terms of your evolving strategy for the day?
Yeah, we came out there, weren't really dogging out of the swims at all, just kind of came out of those. And I think Will was like maybe going to unclip. I'm like, leave it on for the hill to see how we would work for that one. And yeah, I like feeling kind of it pretty warm, and the swims were short enough where I wasn't really like getting a chill. So I kind of pretty quickly was like, oh yeah, let me take my cap off. It's 2 miles. We had it marked on our paddles and stuff. And, we saw where it was going and we knew it was going to be up. So it was kind of like an unzip scenario. Didn't cab down on that one, but we did run with the tether on for, I think, the whole time on that one, which, yeah. And some of the runs that run particular, like had some ups and kind of switchbacky. And I think that was a good, it seemed like it was a little bit, for you, Will, too. You kind of felt like, hey, it was nice you were not, I don't want, being towed is not the right word, but you didn't have to communicate.
You can use being towed. The tether was great. I sat back there and I was like, oh, this is, I'm not redlining as much as I maybe was by myself.
I could feel the tension in the tether of like, okay, I'll back off the pace a little bit when we would hit kind of a hill, and he wouldn't have to be as verbal with it, which I kind of enjoy that piece. It seems to be a little bit more kind of fluid experience is what I like about it. So we do that a lot when the tables are turned and you're pulling my ass up the hill.
For sure. So let's zoom out again, because this seems like a good time as any gear selection. So what did you guys do in terms of gear, and how did you take into account in making your decision kind of what you thought you were going to be experiencing out there?
Yeah, so I brought the Vig and the Ötillö, and then was talking to Chipper, I guess, the day before, and we decided, you said you're going to go Ötillö, no sleeves, normal kangaroo top, I think, or did you go thermal?
I went the normal one, yeah.
I did the normal one too. So I was between the Vig and the Ötillö, and it was just, I felt like with the air temperature outside and then what the water was going to be, and some of the longer swims on the back half, especially like the Parsons one, just because it's a little choppier. I felt comfortable with the choice. Didn't feel like I was going to get cold. It was definitely the right call. I think the Vig, as much as I love it, I could have gotten chilly on some of those, especially that last swim. Granted, it was the last one, but it was, you could have gotten cold out there, especially on that 10K run with the wind blowing, some of the rain. Having the Ötillö definitely helped.
I think we definitely made the right choice. I mean, I was trying to talk myself into the Vig, but being out there a couple days earlier, the unpredictability of the weather and it being like full sunshine, wow, this is amazing, to being raining for 30 minutes, I'm like, okay, this could kind of, the Vig felt like it would have been right on the razor's edge, and more often than not, it felt like it would have gone off the wrong end of it. So Ötillö, Will and I had the same kit. Ötillö, no arm sleeves. I brought the little halo headband, just because it's so small, fold it up, put it in your kit. If something went wrong on one of the swims and we needed to warm up, either one of us, we could have deployed that. Other than that, I felt really good about the race kit.
Okay, and how about a good time for another segue into nutrition, right? Like the fourth discipline of swim run. If, swimming, running, transitioning, then making sure you're fueling probably the fourth one, and the fifth one being like having a good time, I guess. How did you guys think about nutrition? I know, Chipper, you've done a ton of work on this, and you knocked it out of the park in terms of carb consumption for a day. Pretty impressive. I think you were averaging over like 100 grams per hour, which is bonkers. Is this something that you guys also communicated about? It's like, oh, I'm going to try to take a gel every 20 minutes. I'm going to try to do this and that. Tell me a little bit about how that plan came together.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of had our first dating call. We were just like, hey, how's it going? What's your nutrition? I see Will's drinking from a precision bottle right now. He knows what's going on.
Use the code Low Tide 2025 to save 15% off your order.
Good segue, Chris. Thank you. Good plug. So, yeah, I mean, I was like, yeah, I'm shooting for 90 grams. I do the caffeine situation. And Will, you were like 60-ish is kind of what you were targeting. So, you know, felt like we also brought the rolled up flask with the 1500. So felt like Will listens to the show. So it was good taking a lot of things that we were saying. So it worked out well.
Yeah, y'all saved me from making a lot of mistakes out there for sure. My goal was to do 60 an hour and then hit one at every aid station that we could, just bang that extra gel. The game changer that I thought was really helpful was on that long run, cracking the 1500 and just putting it in there beforehand, filling it up with water, and you just have that extra piece on that long run was nice. But yeah, trying to get to 100 an hour, I'm not quite there yet.
Yeah, it's impressive. It's a good
time.
Probably more impressive was the poop that Chipper took the next day. Also sponsored by PFH.
The aid stations I thought were top notch. There was no time when I'm like, I really need an aid station and it wasn't there. There was like, I don't want to say there was too many of them, but they were plentiful throughout the World Series course. I was very happy.
So I have a little critique about this, and I'm curious what you guys think, because I love, just like Austin, where there's just like bonus aid station, water coolers, all that stuff available. It's almost like it'd be nice to know if those are there so you can plan for them rather than just being like, oh, surprise, use an aid station, do something with it. I certainly, well, getting ahead of this, but the short swim before the big 10K run, we were advising people, make sure you fill up your flask and all that stuff at the aid station in Two Harbors, because there isn't anything there. Turns out there was an aid station, after that swim, which is a perfect place for it, frankly, and very nice that it's there. But that's the type of thing where if that was communicated ahead of time, I think people might have made some different tactical choices of maybe saving the time, filling up the flask until they're sort of ready for the big dance. But that's a minor thing. It's nice to have the abundance of aid stations, especially when you don't know what the weather's going to be. As soon as it got sunny, it got pretty warm out there and everyone's in black. So it can be a pretty hot thing. So back to the race reports. So you essentially make it back. And one of the ways I was thinking about this race, and I was chatting people up about it, was kind of thinking of it like an F1 race where there's always like 3 segments, right? And the first one was really that loop, basically getting to the big climb. And the second segment was really just that 10K run, really, because that thing is such a beast and it demands its own thing. And the third one being like, once you get to Parsons Landing, kind of working your way back. I'm curious if that's kind of how you guys saw it, or if that's how it sort of felt kind of organically on the ground.
Yeah, we didn't specifically like discuss it broken up like that, but that's certainly how I was feeling it, is like one bit of work is like pre-10K run, another bit of work is the 10K run, and then after's like coming home, basically.
Coming home.
That's kind of how I was thinking about it, and it felt like you were pretty much on the same page on that piece.
Yeah, the first couple runs, swims, it's really just getting you prepped for that 10K run. I mean, that was the bread and butter of it, and then the come home piece for us, the swimming on the back half felt really comfortable with where we were going. So it was just get through that 10K run, and then let's make sure we do everything we can to knock those swims out. And we knew the back half was going to be more runnable than going up a hill for however many miles that was. That felt like 20.
48 minutes.
Wow, 48 minutes. Yeah. Well, I mean, that run is no joke, right? So you finish this first segment, you do that swim across the cove, which I think is like a 400 or 500 meter swim, hit that little aid station, and boom, you can see it. It just kind of goes straight up, up, up. How did you guys sort of pace that? I know I saw you on the hill when I was doing comps for Ötillö. You guys were moving really well, but how were you thinking about pacing that? Was it just like move with purpose? Was it as simplistic as that, or are you guys a little bit more nuanced in your approach?
No, I mean, it was really like, let's just kind of get after it, run, kind of vary the run if there's an opportunity, because there's a few kind of levels out a little bit, but cab down and just started getting after it. We both had our, I had like a gel in one hand and my flask in the other, and Will had the same thing, and we just started like really getting after it. We put the tether away, and we just kind of were really marching up that thing. And then I was like, man, this thing, I forgot, keeps going. It's like never ending, this hill. So
beast.
I mean, I forgot as well when I was climbing up to just get live footage. I was like, why did I decide to do this? No one's telling me to do this.
We had the same thoughts, or at least I did. I think coming from here and not having the hill experience, like I think that's where communication was key from our end too, is me telling Chip of like, hey, started to run, pick it up. I was like, hey, let's hang back for a second. I need to walk, and some of that stuff. I think that's where it's so good to save yourself a little bit knowing what's on the back half of that course too, or just in general. I think just we communicated really well through that, because I was definitely struggling on that uphill just to move with purpose quickly. And so we were able to slow it down a little bit, which definitely for me saved a good back half of the course for sure. But yeah, that thing's a beast.
yeah, I mean, we didn't like explicitly discuss it, but it's like we could totally, you could exert a lot of energy and burn a lot of matches on that thing, and you would be pretty cooked. And the race is definitely not over after that hill. There's a significant amount to come home still. So, still kind of the more conservative approach on it. And yeah, like when we could kind of hit a little jog, it was almost like varying the legs up from the hiking thing just to kind of get a little shuffle in for 20 meters or something, and then go back to the hiking or whatever. But staying on top of nutrition, drinking that water bottle, and just just chatting and letting the miles roll off.
It's a beautiful thing. The other thing about that 10K run, it's not just the uphill, but it's also the downhill. And I had forgotten, and Chipper, you reminded me just how steep and straight down the back half of that run. So I know you were like, I forgot how much it was. I'm like, damn, it was really that bad. I remember us just recklessly flying down this thing. How was that part? Not only do you have to climb this thing, it's almost insult to injury that you got to destroy your quads on the way down.
So that 50K that I did in March has a section that is essentially what the back half was. And I didn't think anything could be harder than that. Well, it turns out when you don't have any roots or rocks and it's just straight down slide for the most part, it's harder than that. It was, yeah, I don't think you go faster on that downhill than you do up. I mean, you got to be very intentional with every step that you take, because it's a gnarly one. And it just keeps coming at you. Like you feel like you're almost done, and it just keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. That whole run, it's relentless.
It never it just never is letting up. There's no like, oh, you can kind of take your foot off and like, ride the legs a little bit. It's like, no, the traction control lights going on, sliding out and all sorts of stuff. But taking us back to the climb, I think Will and I probably, no joke, like at least 10 times we're like, dude, look at this. We just stop and like kind of hike backwards and just like look at the insane views of the thing. We're just like, this is crazy. We're just like, and it's like, it's really such a beautiful, beautiful place to spend 5 hours of your day.
Do you guys see any bison on that run?
We were looking
I know
forward
the
to
answer
it.
already, but
Yeah.
people might not know.
No bison. We'll have to come back for that though. We'll get our bison view at some point. We did talk about it though. Like if you go there on vacation, right, you're just never going to see those views that a lot of people in the course and volunteers, et cetera, got to see. Like it's a really unique spot because it's so out there, and the only way to do it is to do something like this. So it was unbelievable. I mean, one of the most gorgeous places I've ever been. It was cool.
I love it. So you guys finished that run successfully. Congrats. But then it's really like the kind of like, if the big 10K run was the bread and butter, to use your terminology, Will, then the last section is really like the meat and potatoes, or in Chipper's case, like the satay chicken and potatoes section, right? Because you have a really challenging swim. So Parsons Landing, apparently it was mild compared to 2020, but anyone who wasn't there in 2020 was like, that thing was crazy. So how'd that one go?
Yeah, I mean, we spent a lot of time kind of talking about it and sort of the approach. And, when I arrived in San Diego on Thursday, and Phil, our good buddy Phil, took me out on his La Jolla loop and took me out in some proper like surf out. I mean, I got barrel rolled like multiple times. I got worked by the ocean. I'm like, Phil, man, I'm like, I got to race in a couple. We were racing. What are we doing out here? But I was really, that like experience was a good reminder for me of like, oh yeah, like how to kind of deal with some incoming surf and things like that. So I was trying to kind of plan out how it would go. And again, on the swim, like being very like, here's how we'll take it, and kind of talking about it as we came down to it. And that's a swim that's definitely worth like take an extra 5 seconds, figure it out, talk through it with me and Will. We're sitting there. I'm like, okay, I'm going here. I'm going this way. Talk through it and then get after it.
Yeah, and that was so it would have been my turn to lead that swim. And I think going into it, we were like, all right, well, when we were coming down getting ready, I was like, Chipper, why don't you've done this one before, you've done it. You lead because you know kind of the feeling of it and where to get out. So we ended up switching our plan and he led that swim, which I'm glad he did because it was, even though it was mild, it was, it's just different being more in that going around the buoy and dealing with some waves especially on the exit, making sure you're getting far enough to get a good exit point where you're not getting smoked by the waves when you're trying to get up, which I almost did.
Definitely, I think in 2020 it sent me ass over tea kettle, I think into Chris actually, if I remember correctly, or vice versa maybe, but it sent me tumbling. It was a good example of like good, strong communication, kind of calling a little bit of the audible there. I think it really worked out well. And Will's playing it humble, but the swims that he was going were just, I mean, these really great tight lines. It was really, we were both, as the race kind of unfolded, like just gaining confidence with every swim. Man, great line on that one. That was such a good one. We passed, hey, we got by these teams, or way to navigate the seaweed. The seaweed was really, and the kelp was really crazy this year as well. But as the race went, like our confidence in our swimming was like just kept increasing. And I think, it was really motivating for us as the race kept unfolding.
So let's talk about energy levels at this point, because Chipper, you alluded to it earlier where, we do races where you would lead, if not all the swims, all the major swims, and I would lead like the little baby ones. When I race with Viv in Austin, it's just like, oh, wow, like there's so much energy that you expend, not just from actually leading the swims, but almost like mentally, you have to be so much more engaged for sighting. And, basically you're responsible for driving the boat or steering the ship or whatever. You guys switching back and forth. By this point in the race, you've already done a bunch of swims, done a bunch of runs. Could you feel sort of like the energy savings from switching back and forth? And do you think that gave you both just more in the tank later in the race when you really want it?
100%.
Yeah, especially from a mental side. It's nice having that break of like not having to worry about where you're going and relying and having the trust in the other person that they're sighting, and you can kind of just, I mean, for better or worse, check out for a little bit and just reset your mind of like, okay, this is what we've got coming up. So it's, it was great. It definitely helped from a mental standpoint for sure.
Yeah, certainly like some physical exertion savings, 20%, whatever number you kind of want to throw on it. But I think that mental piece is actually like you're like disengaged a little bit, which is nice. And I was hitting your feet a lot, Will, but I also feel like, I was swimming very close to your shoes, and I felt like that was it was a good place for me. Because sometimes when you're behind, you can kind of get like feeling like you're yo-yoing a little bit, and then you kind of got to do that. But if I just kept it tighter the whole time, it felt like I was able to manage my effort more consistently throughout. But I mean, I think within 2 or 3 swims of being in the back, I was like, oh man, me and Chris need to just be switching off like almost every time now. I can't be letting more.
When I led every swim in Austin, I was like, damn, I've been like running Chipper ragged. I mean, he's 10 years younger than me, so he's fine. He's a big boy. But I was like, man, I've been running him ragged. And I was thinking, it's like, well, our overall performance could improve if I am also fully gassed by the end of the race rather than just like crushing it on the runs. Poor Chipper just like holding on. So glad that you guys confirmed that, because that was definitely a level up for me in racing with other people. But you're in the back half coming home on Catalina, but it's by no means like time to like bone it in and just kind of run downhill the whole way, because right after Parsons Landing, they changed the run because there was some camp and someone didn't know someone's cousin that they had asked for permission or whatnot. So they had to go around it, and they came up with this new trail, which everyone I spoke to said this thing was worth the price of admission. So why don't you kind of walk us through this run, because I mean, that seems to be like, I mean, literally everyone I talked to was like, you got to keep that. Like, that needs to be a feature of this race. So why don't you paint the picture for us?
100%. And if I remember 2020 correctly, Parsons Landing properly cooked us, Chris. And I think we walked the entire next run from whatever that swim was. I think we walked all the way to the thing, like we were cooked. And even after this, me and Will were like, okay, let's take our time. Let's go to the A station again, kind of fuel up. Like it takes a little bit out of you, but we kind of could see folks ahead. I'm like, like at first I was like, really another huge hill just going straight up. But once we got up there, the trail and the views were unmatched. Like, I'm like, how do they even find this trail even existed? I don't even know. It was amazing.
Yeah, and if he was like, oh man, another hill, I was like, oh my gosh, another hill. And it was, you hit the nail on the head there. You get up there and we both said, I know why they did this. Like, unbelievable views. I mean, one of the best views on the whole race course was up there. It was unreal. Like every, I don't know, couple minutes we would literally just stop and be like, look at this. Like, unbelievable. It was, they got to keep it. It was a great addition. Sure.
Lock it in, Lars. Lock it in. We even looked down. I'm like, look at that boring ass trail that we would have been on way down there in the valley. Look at us up here now.
It's like that trail's for suckers.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like single tracky. It was a little sketchy, which is like, I appreciated that when people were telling me, it was like, it was a little sketch with some cacti. You had to like navigate and all sorts of stuff. Very single tracky, like cliffy even at parts. But hey, man, that's what's great about Swimrun, right? The places that'll take you.
Yeah, I mean, the water, we even like, as safe as possible is kind of like looking over the edge. I'm like, that is the bluest. I haven't seen water like that. So many different colors of blue. It was just crazy. I'm like, let's not get too close though.
Yeah, so you guys finish that run. You get back into, I forget which cove you go in next, but you end up having, I think, your last two swims. So one was, I think, about 800 meters. And I'm assuming that was fine. How was the kelp around that point, though? Because I started hearing from people that were finishing and whatnot that, the kelp was grabby.
Yeah.
Which is a term of art, apparently.
Like on the 10K run, we kind of mixed it up with a couple other men's teams. So it was cool, and Will shared this as well. He's like, he's usually in kind of no man's land. It sounds like where we normally hang out, Chris. Just somewhere off in between packs somewhere. We're mixing it up with, we had some solo men and 2 or 3 other men's teams, and we were kind of going back and forth, which added a little bit more fun to it. A couple of Norwegian, Coach Ruben and Coach Marco? Lloyd, thank you.
Coach Lloyd.
A couple tall
Shout
Norwegian
out.
fellas.
Very tall.
Yeah.
Like Clydesdales.
They kept calling the hills snacks. Oh, only a couple more snacks left.
These are full meals for this guy.
A lot of food references in this podcast.
So we were jockeying around with them a little bit, so that was fun. And then the next swim Will had, but ended up being, I guess you'll call it a technical swim. I'll let you tell the story. It was quite the kelp situation.
Yeah, it was a kelp adventure. It definitely, I never thought kelp could end your day, but it was chunky. So on that swim, we get down there and it kind of goes around a slight cove, I think, and then there was like a boat, and Chipper was like, hey, just keep the boat on your left, go to the left of the boat, and then you'll see the flag. And that's what we did. But about a quarter of the way through it, we got tangled a couple times of just trying to, because you kind of have to like push through it. But when you're swimming, sometimes it comes out of nowhere. You don't really know you're in it till you're in it. And so, I think, was that the one that my buoy popped off and we kind of had to like finagle back on? Yeah, so that was, you definitely had to avoid it. You had to take kind of different angles to make sure you go around it. And then my finger strap on my paddle got ripped off. So I was like sculling almost the paddle for the rest of the race for the most part. So it got kelpy for sure. It's terrifying when some grass grabs you and you don't know what it is.
I think we had 3 swims because you did back-to-back.
Yeah.
Will had such a great swim, and we actually entered the water behind a couple teams, took such a great line on it. We ended up making a lot of headway on those teams, and I think that was a really big point for us in the race. We're like, hey, we're kind of surging at the end of the race, which is sort of how you want everything to be happening. So I think it was that swim, and then your next one was the Kelpie one, and you were kind of like,
Yeah, that's right.
you know, his tattered boxer. He's like, I'm done. You're not the.
Like,
I'll bring
one
us
more round.
I
I'm TKO'd.
Yeah, dude, the kelp was.
can't get out.
And the K is for kelp,
It was serious.
not knockout.
Yeah, I think knowing that we had kind of 3 bigger swims on the back half really gave us confidence because we knew in the water we were going to move fast and with good intention, and we both were really familiar with open water swimming and sighting and taking good lines. So that was a good confidence booster after the addition of the trail section to really put some time in, and then also know we have 2 more coming up that were going to help us too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you guys are pretty good about managing the trail runs there. And then the last swim was a doozy. In fact, you guys probably didn't know this, but there was actually a team that DNF'd on that last swim because they got too cold, or at least the guy did. So he left and he got like jet skied in Baywatch or something.
Wow.
And he was on the dock and he comes to the finish line. We put a dry robe on him and stuff because he's shivering. And he's like, yeah, my partner's still out there. I'm like, does your partner know that you DNF? Because is she just out there like waiting for you? Like, what's going on? It's like, oh no, she knew. Anyway, so that last swim, also slightly technical. You had to navigate some blind coves. You had basically a dog leg to the right. So what was the thinking going into the last swim? You know, last swim is kind of where the magic happens. You sort of, you get kind of surprised as to what you're capable of on last swims because you know it's the last one. Is that kind of how you guys felt? And what was your strategy going into that last one?
Yeah, I mean, we were feeling good on the runs, really trying to, even though I was like, hey, I'm fueling really well. I've had a lot of carbs. I'm like, let me still keep it going so we can go, you know, pass a gel or 2 back to Will as well. And then we were like, hey, let's see if we can like keep these teams off of us for a bit and just like hit that last swim and just kind of empty the tank. And right when we were kind of getting in and about to shove off, we saw a team like running down the hill. So, you know, maybe 50 meters. And I'm like, all right, let's go. So I just sent it. No kelp. It was like the water started opening up. Is very clear. And I was just kind of like going around everything. I was feeling pretty good about myself, to be honest with you.
It was. I was in the back. I was in the back hanging out, and I was like, "This is a famous artist, like painting a picture of technical."
Wow.
It was. No, I'm telling you, it
Wow.
was impressive. It wasn't because it was technical. I mean, it was long, and there were definitely areas that you couldn't see exactly where your sight lines were. And he did an awesome job. And I got to watch little baby seal go by us and all the fun things.
There was a little bit of wildlife out there, huh?
Yeah, but it was an awesome last swim. I could see how somebody got cold. Definitely towards the end, it was getting chilly for sure.
We agreed on the last run. We're like, what we don't want to happen is a beach sprint finish with somebody to try to like beat him at the line on the sand. So I was like, I'm just going to empty the tank on the swim and hopefully we get it with enough space to get out. And that is what happens.
Yeah. So you guys cross the finish line, you land on the beach, have to navigate like some tripwire that was apparently out there that some people weren't able to navigate successfully, incidentally. You cross the finish line. Well, this is your first time doing the race. Awesome time, like mad respect on the time. Chipper, when we did this in 2020, we're seriously different people.
Yeah.
You basically finished almost, it's a little bit of a different course, almost 3 hours earlier than what we finished in 2020. Did that like sink in right away, or we were just like, yeah, you know, it's like no big deal, like it's all good, it's all good?
Yeah, I mean, it was a different course, and I think we try not to compare to our former selves, but you know, I mean, like we talked about, we don't have to do the course to know that we would kick the old 2020 Low Tide Boyz ass on that course. But I mean, I felt like, hey, we went out there, we gave it a strong effort the whole day, executed our plan, really great swims, strong runs, strong hiking. Like, I think everything just really felt like it kind of aligned and ticked off well. And that's what I really kind of came away with it at the end, was just like, hey, it was a fun day. You got to do something new with a new partner, but ultimately like just had a great time swim running out there.
Anytime you cross the finish line, it's always a little bittersweet moment because you're like, oh, I'm done. But then you think back of all the last, 4.5, 5 hours that you were out there, and it's like, what an awesome experience. It was great. Happy with the result. Happy with how everything on the race went. Shout out to all the volunteers out there too. A bang up job getting that thing rocking and rolling and race ready. So awesome day. Had an absolute blast.
Awesome. Yeah. Shout out to Lars, Aaron, everyone in the Ötillö USA crew. Dominic was out there. In fact, I want to
Yep.
share a little vignette of Dominic Liu, who's a co-owner of Ötillö. He came in from Switzerland to help support the race and help market and just kind of be there to support this. Obviously, a huge race. It was obviously a huge race in 2020. It was a huge race again. So I'm on the big climb, making my way down so I can get to the finish line to help do some of the announcing at the finish line. As I'm kind of like jogging down, trying not to injure myself again, I see these two sprint people with the orange bibs. They're clearly way off,
Going up
way
the
off. And
10K.
when I got to them, they were on the 10K run. They're probably maybe like 300 feet up or something. As soon as I see them, I'm just raise my hands up. I'm like, stop. Are you wearing the wrong bib? What's going on? Are you sprint people? They're like, yeah, we're sprint people. I'm like, turn around. You missed the turn. You see those people down the hill, like that are going that way? That's your people. You need to go that way. So as they turn around, who do I see huffing and puffing, trying to run up the hill to catch these people is Dominic Liu, who saw them on his bike. He biked up as far as he could before he had to like throw the bike on the side.
No granny gears.
No offense. He didn't get too far up the hill before he had to ditch the bike. He was doing his best to try to catch these people to make sure they didn't make a colossal mistake on their race day. And I just have to say, as a co-owner of Otillo, that certainly wasn't required, but that just goes to show sort of the commitment that Otillo has to trying to put on a good race. So I want to make sure I share that story because, I mean, I was impressed. Incidentally, he also had to leave the race early because he had to catch a flight back to Switzerland. So, you know, not only was he doing the work, like he was there as long as he possibly could to try to make it happen. So huge shout out to Ötillö USA, Ötillö, the crew, everybody, all the volunteers. It was an awesome day. And I think we're ready for like final reflection. So guys, any sort of final thoughts on the weekend, on the race? What's next? Where are you guys at headwise?
Headwise, really good spot. Super happy with how the day went. Appreciate the Instagram message to get us teamed up. It was an awesome day. Really, I learned a lot, especially on the tether side of things. It's always good to do with a friend and somebody that you can spend 5 hours with. Absolute blast. Next, I'm going to do Casco and then probably Orcas. So yeah, just take a week and then start gearing up for that. But yeah, awesome day, awesome course, fun weekend.
Yeah, I'll +1 all that. And, you know, I know Chris and I, we got our Swimrun Bellingham coming up in June, so that'll be a fun one to do. But yeah, overall, just an amazing weekend. Obviously, super fortunate to hang out on the island and live the island life for a couple of days is really something. Coming out your front door and having a cup of coffee and just like staring out the ocean as like the sun's there. I was like, hey, this is, you know, I see why people kind of can get into this. But yeah, just really awesome. And, you know, the folks out on the course and after saying hi and they listen to the show and the pictures and all sorts of stuff. Like, you know, we say this every time, but it really does charge me and Chris up like pretty significantly for the year. And that always is so great when people say that we helped them or they listened to us and even got one tip or they listen to everything we say, which seems slightly dangerous, but, you know, really appreciate all that.
I felt the need to apologize when someone told us. Shout out to Dan Brinkman, who we got to spend some time with.
Yeah.
He was like, I've heard every show. And I was like, oh my God, dude. I'm so
Poor bastard.
like, not even my wife has done that. But yeah, but it was, I'll echo that, you know, from my side, you know, volunteering and meeting a lot of people. I had run comms for the Low Tide Boyz for most of the day. And yeah, all the love, all the gratitude that we received and try to give back to people was great. All the Frank, you know, Low Tide Boyz signature Frank battles were nice to see.
Yes.
That was super fun. And yeah, it's always great to, you know, to spend time with the swimrun community. I'm certainly glad that I went, even though I wasn't racing, because I always say the best part about swimrun is the community. So I'll say the best part is actually being able to swim run. The second best part is the community. But if you can't get the first, the second is certainly good enough. So thank you so much for bringing my partner back in one piece. I'm so happy that you guys had a great race.
Dude, thanks, Kate. Appreciate y'all having me on. Love the podcast. Awesome work. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Will. Appreciate it. And it was like we were on that new run, and I'm like, by the way, I forgot to tell you, you do have to come on the show. I told you a little earlier, but I thought I'll just let you know right now.
You waited till I was so redlining that I couldn't breathe, so I just a response, and then that was assumed yes.
Yeah, I had assumed that you already knew that. So when I started coordinating the scheduling afterwards, for a second I was like, oh, by the way, do you want to come on? Yeah, I'm glad we made this happen. Thanks so much. I know you had a really long, long time getting back home on the red eye on Sunday night. It was impressive. Respect for, for the martyrdom and able to be able to race. It's a key part of our strategy to be able to do all these races is martyr yourself on the way home. And yeah, wishing you good health and see you at Casco most likely, if not Orcas as well.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yep. See ya.
Sure.
That's it for this week's episode. Thanks so much for listening to the show. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave a rating or review, since that's the best way to help other people discover the show and the sport of swim run.
Check out our website, lowtideboyz.com. That's boys with a Z, for swimrun resources, including gear guides, tips, how-to videos, and so much more. Make sure to check out our meme page at The Low Tide Boyz on Instagram. If you have any questions or suggestions for the show, send us a DM or email us at lowtideboyz@gmail.com.
We'd like to thank Riding Easy Records for our show music, and of course our wives for their support and tolerance of our swim run and other activities.
Lots of activities.
Lots of activities.
Finally, you can support our efforts on Patreon. Until next time, get out there and go for a swim.
Then a run,
And then a swim,
then another run,
then another swim.
then run some more.
Just keep going.
Let's go.
And then stop at some point because,
And fuel. Don't forget to fuel.
Gotta fuel
Of course, yes.